Hello, future scientist, Mr. Hodgkop here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about air masses. And I noticed in that cloud sheet, a lot of you wrote a little bit that what created those clouds are different air masses and fronts. And an air mass is a large body of the air with the same relative humidity and temperature all the way throughout. There are four types of air masses that come into Minnesota. One of those is a maritime tropical. So a maritime, it actually is water or wet, and tropical is warm. So if it comes over the oceans from the equator, the conditions that the air takes on is warm and moist like air. Another type of, so here is a picture of over the Gulf, that air forming someplace that is wet and warm, creating that maritime tropical air mass. Another type of air mass is a maritime polar air mass. So if it forms over the water someplace to the north, the northern Pacific, northern Atlantic Ocean, that air that it takes on is going to be cold and moist air, and it creates a maritime polar like air mass. Our third type of air mass that we get in Minnesota is continental tropical. So if it forms over Mexico, New Mexico, Arizona, it takes on the dry and warm air before it comes up into Minnesota, and that's called a continental tropical type air mass. Another air mass is a continental polar. If it comes from Canada down into Minnesota, it takes on the dry and cold air from Canada and then brings it down to us, and that type of air mass is continental polar. Now, these air masses are always doing battle in the sky, and that place where those two air masses meet is going to be called a front. And in World War II, they used to map out where the most fighting was occurring, and they call that the front line. So meteorologists took this term because it looked like these air masses were doing battle, and they also called those fronts. There's a couple of different types of fronts. One of them is called a cold front. If that cold air is winning the battle and overtaking that warm air, a cold front occurs. The symbol for that cold front is triangles, and I like to think of it as little icicles hanging from the line, and that's how I always remember what that cold front symbol is going to be. Here we have that cold air quickly pushing up that warm air, and a cloud forms that's called a cumulonimbus cloud, heaps of rain. If the warm air is overtaking the cold air, that type of front is called a warm front. The symbol for that, they're half circles on a line, and I like to think of it as setting suns, and that's how I remember what the warm front symbols are going to be. So here we have a warm front slowly overtaking that cold air, creates our different types of clouds. At the beginning of that warm front are cirrus clouds. At the middle of that warm front are alto clouds, and at the end of that warm front are those stratus clouds, and eventually nimbostratus clouds. There are a couple of other special types of fronts. One of those is called an occluded front. An occluded front is if a cold front catches up to a warm front. A lot of times our most extreme weather can occur at occluded fronts. And finally, if both of the air masses come in contact with each other and there's not very much movement, a stationary front takes place, and those air masses just stay in the exact same place. All right. Hopefully, as all is well with you, and we'll talk to you later. Yeah, bye.